This show is for informational purposes only. In view of the complex nature of health and disease, it is only recommended that you change your current treatments or healthcare practice with the direct assistance of a health professional. You can contact Dr. Dale if you desire to achieve true health. Call his office at 931-591-2010.
Hey everybody, Dr. Dale here, the Wild Doc, and today's subject of concern and discussion is going to be mammography screening. Is that test saving lives? Is what we're doing right now to detect supposed early cancers or early stage cancers, is that actually contributing to more women reaching their God-given health potential? Now, we are Facebook Live right now, so Facebook watchers, be asking questions, liking, sharing. Make sure that you share the truth. Don't just like the truth, because sharing the truth is the only way that we save lives. Now, for those listening in the radio show, because this will be airing on the radio as well, and on TV, we have this show going out as many avenues to get this type of vital information to the public and get more people aware of this subject right here. So I said last time on this show, I said I would be talking a little bit more about the study regarding the FDA's lack of effort to actually do away with medical fraud and manipulation of data and information that our medical physicians here in this country, particularly in the United States, are using to properly treat their patients. And I wanted to touch on that. And this article right here could be very beneficial for anybody that watches this entire program or is listening to this entire program. See, the problem right now with our healthcare system is, goes all the way to the top. We have problems with our government. We have problems with government agencies like the CDC and the FDA, for which those organizations are not protecting our doctors. And what I mean by protecting our doctors, they're not protecting them from doing harm to their patients. They're not giving doctors adequate information. They're actually promoting treatments and drugs and therapies and testing that is profit-driven rather than public-centered or patient-centered. So we need to get back to a system that is patient-centered, patient-driven, serving-centered, rather than a healthcare system right now that is more profit driven. So we're going to talk about that, because a lot of this information, I guarantee you, I will talk about in other things that we're going to talk about throughout this hour is going to be, we're going to go through a wilderness remedy. We're going to talk about reishi mushroom and the effectiveness of that at boosting the immune system and helping people combat the effects of radiotherapy, radiation therapy, or chemotherapy. We'll be talking about another test that is one of the most effective tests that actually can tell you how your body is functioning, how it is healing, how you're working against an active disease like cancer. Is your body fighting that well, or is it fighting it poorly, and thus the disease is more likely to take your life? We'll be talking about that, because that's one of the most crucial tests that I see within the medical literature that we need to be doing and integrating into our practices right now. And that's something that I do in my clinic on every single one of my patients now. It's called a heart rate variability study, and you can learn more about that coming up in this show. We'll be talking about the cost and the burden of cancer treatments and how the profiting has overcome the ability for our healthcare system to really always do what's right. We're bankrupting people before they can even get to effective treatments. Many times you're bankrupted by all the testing before you even get into anything that's supposedly going to help you, and that's another major problem. So again, kind of talking about why is this information not out there in the public, not out in the media? Why do we still promote the use of mammography in this country at all if what I'm revealing to you today is actually true, which the data and the information, the research shows without a doubt mammography screenings are not saving lives, and we're going to cover the research regarding that. So why would we still be promoting it? Because a lot of people are going to sit here and say to me, and be watching this online, and they're going to think, if this was so true, if it was so true that mammograms don't save lives, why don't we just stop it? Well, we have regulatory boards like the FDA and the CDC that are backing big drug companies and not backing the good hearts of our doctors and hoping to do what's best for our patients or the individuals in this community. So again, let's touch on that. Let's touch on the corruption of our FDA really quickly to just set a foundation. The research article here in front of me comes from the Journal of American Medical Association, and I got to commend them for going out of their way to study such a subject like this. So the JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, February 2015, the title of it, Research Misconduct Identified by the Food and Drug Administration. Now, if you're watching, I'm Dr. Dale, I'm the Wild Doc. If you want more information like this, go to thewilddoc.com, subscribe to email. We will email out every one of the articles that I discuss here, so that if you need to pass it on to a friend or family member, you can get that documentation and read it yourself, become more aware and more educated, because I can't just read word for word every single one of these documents. But that's one of the things that I love to do. When I'm speaking, I'm going to talk from the research, from the evidence, so that it's no longer my opinion. My opinion will come out. You'll see where I stand on subjects like health, like corruption. I hate it. I despise corruption in medicine because I see that nothing more than profiteering. During the hurricanes recently, gas stations, grocery stores that upped food prices, water prices, and gas prices, that was profiteering. They were taking advantage of people in a situation during a natural disaster. And that's much the same as cancer. Cancer is basically a natural disaster, which is not natural, it's not normal. I shouldn't say it's natural, but you can get the point. What I'm trying to make here is that people are being taken advantage of when they're in a weakened state, when they're in a suffering state, when they're in a time of need. Granted, everyone's services. A man's labor is worth his wages. We need to reward people for giving great information, for leading people down a path of health, helping them recover and be a terminal illness if it is a truly terminal illness, which not all cancers are, and we'll be touching on that as well. Because people need to know when it's terminal and when it's not terminal. And that's one of the tests that we're not doing right now in mainstream medicine is the heart rate variability. Just touching on that again, is a test that can tell somebody their likelihood of surviving cancer, or whether this is an aggressive cancer, whether the strength of their nervous system, their body is able to combat the cancer from spreading out of control. So here we go. What I'm going to be doing is reading a lot of this directly from the research documents to you. Okay, so the title again, Research Misconduct Identified by the FDA, out of sight, out of mind, out of the peer-reviewed literature. So what they showed was 75 published clinical trials were identified by the FDA inspections. So the FDA would go to clinical trial centers, universities, places where they do these studies on drugs, on therapies, on testing, and found major problems. Okay, the problems that they found were submissions of false information, so complete fraud in 39% of those trials. And remind you, this is one thing I feel like I have to mention, is that when you're investigating into if you're looking and you're investigating to see if you can find liars. A liar, majority of the time, especially in academia, in academics, in drug companies, they don't just lie and like write a label on this. This is a lie. So therefore it's easy for you to find. I just want to make sure that you know that we lied right here. No. So if it's 39% of those clinical trials that they evaluated found fraud and lies, how many lies are truly being told to our physicians and to the American public through medical manipulation? Medical journal manipulation and clinical trial manipulation. So problems with adverse events reporting in 14 of the trials, which would be 25%, protocol violations in 74, which is a form of research fraud, inadequate and inaccurate record bookkeeping, 61%, failure to protect the safety of patients in over 50% of the trials. They were not protecting the safety of patients. And we'll touch on that specifically in regards to a trial that was done on a chemotherapy regimen, on comparing two chemotherapy regimens. All right, they showed that only 3 of the 78 publications, so 75 trials, 78 publications, so one of those trials got published multiple times, which was one of the worst trials actually done. It was one which a doctor committed murder to make chemotherapy drugs look good. The publication, 4%, resulted from the trials the FDA had found significant violations and mentioned objectionable concerns. They said here that there was no correction, so the FDA made no corrections in the medical literature. No retractions, no expressions of concern, and no overall comments acknowledging the key issues identified by the inspection. No corrections by the FDA. What is the FDA's job? That's what I want to sit here and I want everybody to share this until members of our FDA and our government see and understand at least this research journal right here. What are they even doing? If they find fraud, manipulation, lies, I thought their whole role and job was to protect our medical physicians from giving improper treatment to patients, for which those treatment would be doing nothing but padding the pockets of big pharma and medical physicians who are willing to do that. Not all of them, thank God, not all of them are, but some of them are doing it unknowingly. We can have good-hearted doctors who are very sincere about wanting to help their patients, but because the FDA won't do what the public perceives its job to do, which is protect us from lies in the medical community and give us access to the best available treatments, procedures, and testing, what's going on is we're spending a bunch of money on junk treatments, on junk testing, and that's what's taking place, especially when it comes to mammography. And I know, and I need to explain this, and I'm going to briefly tell you that I know there are women watching this right now, whether it's live or whether it's in the future. You're going to be watching this, and you're going to say to yourself, well, I know a mother, a cousin, a sister, somebody who went in for a mammogram, found out they have cancer, and now they're a cancer survivor, and they're here 15 years later. They're here 10 years later. We're going to explain to you why those survivors are not survivors because of the treatments they received, but because they would have lived through it anyways without treatment at all. Yet those individuals are succumbing to the financial stressors and harms from having to pay for treatments that were not beneficial. They're succumbing to the hair loss, the hormone loss, the sex drive loss, the inability to be intimate with their husband. These are all things that take place as side effects of chemotherapy and radiation. And I've seen this firsthand in ladies that I've assisted with in taking them through the process of understanding what they need to do in the evidence that is not readily given to them. My whole goal with the True Health Talk, with the Wild Doc, is simply to give people understanding and information and knowledge. Knowledge is power. I believe that so much. That's why my whole goal as a doctor should be to teach patients about information for which they can help themselves, can help their family members, help the community. All right, that is my goal through this process. So I'm not trying to just destroy our medical myth. Well, kind of am. I'm trying to destroy certain myths, but not in a aggressive manner that is just, well, I'm very aggressive, I guess you'd say. I'm trying to do it because if we don't, we're going to continue down a path that is actually causing more women to develop cancer because of the radiation from mammography than the lives that we actually extend. That's not okay with me. The fact that the FDA allows murder to take place in clinical trials and does nothing to warn doctors about what drugs that were made to look good by doctors committing murder, that's not okay with me. And I don't think it should be okay with anybody else watching this. If you're okay with that, give it a thumbs. I don't know. The emoji that doesn't exist. How do you, I'm okay lying to people. I'm okay with continuing to promote fiction within the medical community. That's costing lives. That's costing us money. It's bankrupting our nation, bankrupting families, ruining families, mutilating women. So, sorry about the ringer in the background there, but anyway, so here is the case that I want to talk about. A researcher was caught falsifying documents in a number of trials. In part, those falsifications led to the deaths of patients undergoing treatment in the clinical trial, comparing two chemotherapy regimens, which one is going to be better. That's what they wanted to identify. The first dose of the treatment proved to be fatal. The researcher pleaded guilty to fraud and criminal negligent homicide. Pleaded guilty to criminal negligent. That's what's so crazy to me, is that they pleaded guilty to criminal negligent homicide. So, if you have to. Uh-oh. Hang on. So, oh man, we got a phone call in the middle of it. Hang in there. I can't answer, but we'll get back to you. So, and I know the lady, and she calls in the radio show. Anyways, so here we got. The first dose of treatment proved to be, she was trying to call in the radio show. She watching live? You're supposed to Facebook message, not supposed to call in live. Anyways, the first dose of the treatment, they proved fatal to the patient. They killed the patient. The researcher pleaded guilty to criminal negligent homicide. He was sentenced to 71 months in prison. So you can get away with murder, By lying and falsifying documents to hide that the patient was so weak, he then administered treatment to make another treatment look good so that he would kill this patient here. Now, was that full? He's putting patients into one arm of the study, selectively placing them there so that he could make this other chemotherapy look good. That's horrible. That's evil. 71 months in prison is all he got. Yet none of the publications in the peer-reviewed literature that our medical physicians and oncologists are using to decide which treatments to give to their patients, okay, none of them had any mention that the chemotherapy, that a patient had died, that the doctor had committed murder, no mention of fraud, falsification, or homicide. So what is our FDA even doing? That was my point in that research study right there. We need to make sure our physicians know about this type of stuff. This is why I'm airing these types of conversations. And next, let's get into the main subject, breast cancer. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is where we are right now. We're a little over halfway through October right now. And what I want to talk about first is the gravity of this type of information. How important it is for this type of understanding to get out to the community, get out to people. A patient this morning came to me and asked me if I would speak to a friend of theirs, a colleague of theirs in this community, in my community. A young man diagnosed with cancer several years ago goes through his treatments, goes through the standard medical testing and treatments. And of course, my patient said to me back then, several years ago, like around 2 years ago, he said they had got it all, that they had got all the cancer. Guys, cancer isn't something you swallowed. Cancer, even though poisons that you swallow can contribute to cancer, but cancer isn't something that suddenly got stuck inside your body, that if we just pull it out, that we just remove that organ or body part where it's located at this moment in time. That is not the cancer or the disease process. The tumor, the cells that are growing irregular or out of control, we label that the cancer, and our minds have been trained to think that that's the only thing that we need to worry about, when it's not. What we need to truly worry about is how did the cancer get there in the first place? Because if we don't remove the root cause, what caused the cancer to develop out of our own body, from our own cells, that is cancer. Cancer comes from our own body and our own cells suddenly malfunctioning and growing out of control. So if what allowed those first cells to grow into the tumor that was identified by your medical physician or on a test, if what allowed that to develop in the first place is not corrected, removed, nutrient deficiencies made right again, toxicities removed from the cells of our body, those causes are still there. Thus, more cells that our body is going to produce so that we can live are going to turn cancerous again, and the cancer will come back. I want to put this into perspective into the words of a medical physician. He says, the title of this article in Newsweek in 2008 is "We Fought Cancer, ... and Cancer Won." This comes from the surgeons, so this comes from a oncologist, Edward Kim of University of Texas MD Anderson in Houston. Okay, MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, a surgical oncologist. He says surgeons will remove the malignancy, they say, that which had not spread according to their medical tests at that time. And they're talking about a specific individual, and this is a great example. Going back to my patient's friend, they said that they had got it all, but it came back because now the root source was identified and removed. So they told Mayberry that he had been cured. That is one of the worst things a medical physician, an oncologist, a doctor can ever do. Now, I want to give people hope, but I don't say, we know you've been cured, because a lot of people take the term cured and think, I'm good to go, I can go back to my regular lifestyle, I don't need to change anything in my life. They got it for me. They healed me. Doctors, they had faith in their medical physician and the surgeon to get it all, remove it all. But they removed part of your body that was malfunctioning, but they didn't remove what was causing the malfunction in the first place. If that is not identified, then cancer will return and grow again. So that's what they said. He says, we take it out. And this is a quote from this surgical oncologist at MD Anderson. He says, quote, "We take it out, you're all set, enjoy the rest of your life, because really, What else can we do until it comes back? And again, it did 2 years later, just like this local individual that this patient of mine is bringing him into me so that he can have a doctor that helps coach him through a process of understanding what cancer is. And we're going to touch on that today. We're going to teach you in this show yet what cancer is, why it's developing, and the triggers that allow those cancerous cells to start developing from your healthy cells, what will strengthen your body against combating the further growth of that tumor and cancerous cells. And again, I'm not saying I treat cancer, but what I'm saying is I educate my community. I educate my practice members. The people that are in this practice, members of my practice, I am here to serve, protect, and help, and through education is the way I do that. Empowering them to take steps on their own 2 feet to be able to beat cancer, to be able to combat disease. Again, not treating the disease with anything that I do, just educating a person on the things that are known through the research and evidence to support a healthy body, proper regulation, so that disease can no longer exist or disease risk significantly goes down. So he goes, the cancer cells in Mayberry's lungs had metastasized to his brain either after the surgery, since such operations rarely get all the microscopic cancer cells. Mind you, they said they got it all, but they are admitting they'll say that and not be able to get it all. Or they say microscopic or long before, since in many cancers, rogue cells break away from the primary tumor as soon as it forms and make their way into other organs. And they'll make their way into distant organs. That's the reality. I want to talk really quick about just how and why cancer will develop, whether it be the breast tissue, the lungs, the prostate. One of the primary factors that we see in clinical practice is this right here. Breast cancer occurs here. Why is it occurring in the breast tissue? And there's several mechanisms. I talked on my last show about digestive issues and issues like that, why that would contribute specifically to things like breast cancer because of nutrient and toxicity effects in the breast tissue. But what we see in clinical practice is there's a key component, which is your brain and nervous system. So that's your brain. Okay, there's your cerebellum, and then here's your spinal cord, which should trace down your spine like that, and then these nerves branch out from your spinal column, coming out of the bones, and you've got these bones around here, okay, these bones that are protecting these nerve roots, okay, that's protecting the spinal cord. What we see is, let's say the nerves in, take example, the breast or the lung. Let's say the nerves branching out at the bottom of the neck, let's say that those nerves are being cut off. Maybe not completely spliced. These studies of splicing and cutting and deadening nerves have been done in animals and shown that where they damage the nerves, they make the animal susceptible to cancer development. By injecting cancer cells into the bloodstream of animals, wherever they deaden nerves, that placed that area of the animal's body susceptible to the development of the cancer cells, okay, and further tumor growth. So let's say the bones are out of alignment in this region of the neck, or there's deteriorative disc disease, those types of things. Well, that interferes with that signal there. Okay, that signal can no longer send an adequate amount of information for proper control and regulation of the immune response and cellular repair and healing. When that happens, now what is happening is this is the weakest area of your body, whether that be the breast, whether it be the lungs, whether it be down here in the prostate. In men, if they had degenerative disc disease down here, we know that inflammatory processes, neuroinflammation, and damage occurs in the prostate, which continues to cause more and more disease process, eventually can develop into full-blown cancer. So this is what we see, and that's why it's one of the most critical things is to have your spine evaluated on a regular basis and taking care of it, much like you would brush your teeth. If we don't take care of our spine and our nervous system, we're weakening areas of our body. We're going to become susceptible for areas of our body to be able to develop active disease. And again, that's the testing that we do in my clinic. And that's why I'm promoting this, is because this is what the evidence shows. The evidence is showing that the nervous system is a key, plays a key, if not one of the most key areas, components of why somebody develops cancer. So, let's talk about this. So what we need to do is we need to discuss the topic of mammography. Anthony, how much time do I have yet in this hour? So,
you're about 24 minutes
24 minutes in. Okay, Facebook watchers out there, ask any questions you have. You can ask them at later dates. I'll get back to them. I know that I got some other videos I've got to get back to as well. But ask any questions. If you're listening to this because it's recorded or by TV, you can email me at drdalebrown@gmail.com. You can message me at The Wild Doc on Facebook. You can also go to thewilddoc.com and get the information, get the articles and information if you subscribe to the email list. So, overdiagnosis, overtreatment. If you wanted to give my office a call as well, let me make sure that I mention that. If you wanted to give the office a call, you can call the office at 931-591-2010. Again, that phone number for assistance in helping your body heal, or if you want Dr. Brown and myself's assistance through this process of healing and getting to the root causes, you can call the office at 931-591-2010. Or if you're interested in getting a heart rate variability test, which is one of the key indicators of prognosis, which prognosis is what's your future likelihood of beating a disease process, what's your future likelihood of surviving. That heart rate variability test, which has been determined by the research to give you a great prognosis and your likelihood of surviving, we can do that in our clinic as well. And you can, again, call the office 931-591-2010. All right, so I want to go through, and I was joking with Anthony before I actually started this live broadcast in this show. I was telling him, man, it's like, I should just tell everybody, like, they called me, Journal of American Medical Association, they wanted somebody in the media, in information, in education, in our community, to be speaking out about the fact that the use of medical testing like mammography is not saving lives. Okay, they say at the very last sentence of this article, which is right here in front of me, overdiagnosis and overtreatment in cancer, an opportunity for improvement. So we have an opportunity for improvement. And this article in Journal of American Medical Association was published back in July of 2013. Very little has been done. There's been a few media outlets, but I still see everywhere in my community. I don't even want to say it, but I was like, save the tatas and you know what, for boobies, and you know, let's do all this stuff and let's march for the cure and let's run in circles for the cure. You know, and that's what I tell people, like, what we're doing now, we are just running in circles. We're not getting anywhere. We need to stop what we're doing if it's not working, and that's what the evidence shows. So they say that the media should better understand and communicate the message so that as a community, the approach to screening can be improved. Our approach needs to improve because right now we're not saving lives. All right, so here we have it. The first paragraph says, although the goals of these efforts, so over the past 30 years, awareness and screening have led to an emphasis on early detection, diagnosis of cancer. So the whole goal is to find it early. If we find it early, we can treat it. But the reality is cancer doesn't progress at the same rate for everybody. One person could develop a tumor and be dead in 3 months because the tumor and the cancer is so aggressive. And the tumor is not aggressive, it's that the body is lacking the ability to control the irregular growth of those cells. That is what causes the rapid development. And that's where the heart rate variability studies come in, is the fact that that can tell you how strong your nervous system is and your body's physiology is, function of your body in controlling the development and progression of cancer. That's the key component here. But diagnosis and early detection, all we're doing is we're detecting it, but we're not getting the root causes, so it's going to develop into a worse disease process sooner if we don't do anything. So, although the goals of these efforts were to reduce the rate of late-stage disease and decrease cancer mortality, secular trends and clinical trials suggest that these goals have not been met. The goals of decreasing mortality, death, that should be the goal. The goal should not be just, hey, let's find as many people with cancer as we possibly can, and let's put them on a bunch of treatments and stress them out and tell them they have cancer. That's not the goals, but that's the only thing that has come about from the use of mammography screening. Clinical trust. And guys, I know there's women that it's difficult. Sometimes it's disturbing to me. It's even my heart hurts to think that women are watching this and that they're being hurt by thinking to themselves, was I taken advantage of? Did I fall for something that I shouldn't have? Did I go through treatment that was a significant amount of suffering that I didn't need to? Did I lose a lot of money? Did I make my family go through financial strain and hardship because of a disease that I didn't need to do anything about because my body was already strong enough to beat it? That's why the tests for how strong your body is are so critical. But when it comes down to it, my heart hurts to even have to present this information because I feel like the reason I do it is because I feel like those that should be speaking this truth are not. They're not shouting it. They're not sitting in the hospital before a person goes through a mammography. They're not shutting down the mammography center in the hospital. They're still telling people they need to do it. Or they're not telling them whether they need to or don't need to. They're just sitting back collecting their paychecks, getting paid. If we don't, as a society, become educated on this type of information, we never have enough impact in terms of producing a change in our medical community because we're not demanding. We're not taking away the financial gain that they're getting from continuing to do these tests. If we take that away from them, if we demand better by them, if we demand tests that will actually help us determine our risk of mortality or death from cancer, then we're just going to continue on the same path that we're on. People are making their money and they're happy and they don't have any need. Unless we put pressure on them, there's no need to change. And that's what needs to happen. That's why I talk about this type of information, hoping that the community puts pressure on our medical community, on the FDA, to do what is right by the people. So they didn't reduce mortality. The word cancer invokes a specter of inexorably lethal process. So this is all, this is the way they talk in medical journals. So, all right, lethal process. However, cancers are heterogeneous and can follow multiple paths. Not all which progress to metastasis, which is the spread, full body spread of cancer, and death. And this includes indolent cancers or harmless cancers and diseases that would have never harmed the person during their lifetime. So that's the thing, is detection of cancer is not leading towards root cause removal. It's only leading towards treatment with invasive procedures that aren't getting rid of sources of disease. All right? So one of the next articles that people need and women need to read before they ever go get a mammogram or even choose to do any test at all, this type of concept and understanding needs to take place. This is an article I believe every single woman in the United States and across the world should have read by this point in time. Okay, this comes from the New England Journal of Medicine. It was published in 2014, May of 2014. Abolishing mammography screening programs. A view from the Swiss Medical Board. Switzerland is abolishing mammography screening in their nation. Why? Because, again, the evidence shows it doesn't save lives. And I'm going to show you how the statistics can be said that, oh, we're saving lives by early detection. We're extending 5-year survival. We're doing these things. I'm going to show you how they're manipulating those statistics into giving a false positive review and outlook on the use of mammography screening. So, when we review the available evidence and contemplate its implications in detail, however, we became increasingly concerned. They said that they were struck by how non-obvious the benefits of mammography were. You know, most women would think that it's obvious mammograms save lives. I know somebody who went in for a mammogram. They detected cancer. They went through treatment. They're still alive today. Thus, they're a survivor. But those survivors are oftentimes people that would have never died from the cancer had any negative effects. Again, go back to the Journal of American Medical Association and review that type of information. And that's what we want to talk about here. They say that those in this article, they talk about how the maybe 1 or 2 women per thousands that get annual mammograms, how they said that 1 or 2 women may have their life extended because we lucked out in finding an aggressive cancer and treating it. But the reality is, because of the radiation, we're causing more cancers, and because of the treatments that cause heart failure and other cardiovascular infectious diseases to take hold on the person's body and weaken the person's body further, those are counteracting any benefit, and also what they're doing basically is they're increasing overall mortality. So they're disconcerted about the perceptions women. This is the problem. We have to change the public's perception about this type of screening and testing. It says here, a survey about U.S. women's perceptions was done in which 717 of 1,003 women, 71.5%, said they believe that mammography reduced the risk of breast cancer deaths by at least half. Out of 723 women of those, 72.1% thought that at least 80 deaths would be prevented per 1,000 women who were invited for a screening. They thought that 80 lives per 1,000 would be saved if we did screening. But in reality is, we weren't saving any lives. That's the perception our community currently has. Maybe now that it's a little bit further and I've been speaking out about this, maybe it's now 73% rather than 72%. Or 71% rather than 70. Maybe the percentage of women believing in mammography has gone down from the few people that are speaking out. But we need more people. We need this video to be shared. We need this video to go across the United States, the world. This information, not me, this information has to, because if this information is not understood, grasped, and utilized, nothing changes. We continue to see women die from breast cancer without need. We don't need to see this. We have to change. If we don't change, we continue down the same path. To continue to do the same thing over and over again is insanity, and that's what I look at. And so much of what we do is insane, because if we're still making money on it, nobody cares to change. Sadly, or the people that care to change, they speak up, and then they're told to be quiet. They're told to keep their mouths shut. They're told to don't make waves. Let everybody go about and do whatever they want to do. That's not okay with me. If somebody's on the wrong path, if somebody's walking towards the edge of a cliff with a blindfold on, it's my duty. I'm required as a human being to try and do something to save them. Another argument was that the report unsettled. So here I'm speaking and reading different segments of this. Again, this information, go to wilddoc.com and subscribe to the email campaign list, and you'll have this information for free download, and you'll be able to get access to the links of these research articles, such as in the New England Journal of Medicine right here. So this segment says the argument. So this is an argument for why some experts and medical oncologists and doctors and community leaders are saying, don't get this information out. Don't stop doing mammography screenings, because their argument was that the report unsettled women. But the doctors in this report, they say, we wonder how to avoid unsettling women given the available evidence. They understand that this is going to unsettle women, especially women that have been treated in the past for cancer when they didn't need to be, when they realize that. But that's a good thing. You know what? So if you are a survivor, from one concept here. Now, I don't want to say this too lightly, because I don't want the women that need to change and make major change in their lifestyle to not allow cancer to come back. I don't want to tell them to think this way. It's so hard. It's a very touchy subject. We need to unsettle women so that the ones that need to change and not just rely on chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery and the drugs currently being used, don't rely just on that. Don't rely on the tests we have right now to detect when cancer comes back to tell you whether you're going to survive long term or not. Don't rely on that. Change still. If you've ever been diagnosed with cancer, okay, change what you're doing to allow that cancer to develop in your life. And I know that's hard to say, because there's kids where there's things that we have in our environment that if we would realize, if we could remove chemicals, pesticides, things like that, if we would remove those things, feed our children better. You know what, and I'm not blaming adults. I know that it's such a touchy subject for people who have been impacted by cancer, and I've seen, and why I talk about this subject is because my aunt developed stage 4 metastatic cancer. Basically, it had gone from her breast to her lungs. She was told she was cured. She was told by the surgeon they got it all. She was told that she could go about her life again, and she got sicker and sicker even after those treatments, and the cancer came back. And it was through a series of adjustments to realign her spine that got her body functioning well again. And by increased function of her nervous system, her bowels started moving again. And through her bowels moving, she was able to detoxify. She was able to change her nutrition. She was able to do the things to restore health and healing. And by doing so, she beat a cancer that doctors said would most likely take her life in a matter of months. And she's still here, and it's because of that testimony, or that situation in my family's lives, that showed me that I needed to become a chiropractor. I needed to start helping people. I needed to show people the real, the truth, the information that could save their lives, like my aunt's life was saved. So again, we have to unsettle them. We got to shake the foundation of our current belief systems. If we don't do that, we don't tear down the idols that we have of mammography and this false belief, nothing is going to change. Okay, so it says here, we would be in favor of mammography screening if the beliefs were valid, the beliefs that it saved lives. Unfortunately, they are not, and we believe that women need to be told so. From an ethical perspective, a public health program that does not clearly produce more benefits than harms, it is hard to justify. Not even hard. Like, I laugh. I'm like, how do you even say it's hard to justify? You can't justify something that causes more harm than good. You cannot justify that when people have a faith in you, the physician or the system, to do what is best for people.
What are your thoughts about keeping the body in an alkaline state?
So what are my thoughts about keeping the body in an alkaline state? We got a Facebook Live question. I think that's absolutely critical. I think there is use in things like, I don't know if you're asking a question to like alkaline waters, those things. I think that a lot of the water we used to drink in nature, in the environment, was more alkaline. Now with the chemicals we have to do to purify or kill bacteria and sewage waste and stuff like that in our water systems, chlorine, fluoride are very acidic and cause harm. Fluoride's a very acidic molecule. It causes a lot of damage in the body. It's one of the most cancer-causing chemicals. So we're drinking a lot of water that causes an excess acidity. We do need to counteract that. Drinking alkaline water has a benefit, but it's not a root cause. It's not something that would just remove that full root cause, but it's something very beneficial. I really believe in filtered clean water. Where I can get spring water, I like to get that, being it more alkaline. And then I do like to eat a lot of green vegetables in my diet because green is going to go alkaline. A lot of even citrus fruits that are acidic in nature, they have an alkalizing effect on the body. And these are the things. That's a great question because acid. So a lot of cancer cells grow more readily and have a greater environment for cellular replication and growth of cancer. They grow in a body that's very acidic. So eliminating things like soda, which has sugar and acidity, that would contribute to the development and progression of cancer, removing those things, even removing oral ingestion or by mouth ingestion of coffee, that's very acidic. Doing things that would create a acid environment. Stress causes more acidity. We really need to remove the acid from the body. So that's a great question. You hit on a perfect topic. And those are things that throughout I definitely want to bring up and educate the community on. So please, thank you for that question on Facebook. Continue to ask as many questions as you can. I want to give the information that people out there in our community need to hear and understand. So I like to just hammer subjects like, because I believe if we see change where change is necessary, then we can really focus our efforts, our finances, our money, our tax dollars, our donations in the direction that would make a real impact at seeing lower cancer rates. So I want to talk a little bit about breast cancer screening incidence and mortality across U.S. counties. This research journal in the Journal of American Medical Association, this one was published in July of 2015. It was one of the best that I found. Here are the conclusions. It says when analyzed at the county level, so they study counties, different counties throughout the entire United States. So they study these on the percentage of women in that county getting mammography screening. So basically what they would be able to do is this right here. And I'll describe some graphs. Let me read this to you so then I can start drawing on the whiteboard here. Sorry, listeners on the radio. Make sure that you go and watch the YouTube, I'll call them reruns of this video right here. And that way you'll get to see the data information that I draw on the whiteboard here. But they say the clearest result, by analyzing at a county level in the United States, the clearest result of mammography screening, or mammograms, is diagnosis of additional small cancers. We could also kind of say those are harmless cancers in the vast majority of women. Furthermore, there is no decline in detection of larger cancers, which might explain the complete absence of any significant differences in overall mortality and death from the disease. Together, these findings suggest that widespread overdiagnosis is the only result of mammography. So overdiagnosis is a term used in medicine to say that there are diagnosing women when they didn't need to and they shouldn't have, because by diagnosing them with cancer or disease, they are going to treat them with invasive procedures and drugs that cause a harm and financial harm and stress on the body, when it would have been better for that individual to have never known that they had a tumor within their breast tissue. So as far as breast cancer goes. So what they were doing is they were taking percentages. So what I'll do is I'll draw basically the same graph that they had on here. So this was percentages, okay? 40%, 60, 80, 100. So they had percentage of women receiving mammography in that county there. On the other side of the graph, this axis, they had breast cancer diagnosis. So diagnosis of cancer, they started down here at 100, and this is per 100,000. This is a 100,000 rate. So 200, 300, and then we got 400 way up here. So that is diagnosis. So as the percentage of women increased, so as it goes this direction, the percentage of women increased, so did diagnosis of cancer. So the more women percentage-wise in the county, so if 100%, we had a lot of detection of cancer. So in essence, we were detecting more cancers by screening more women. What should we see in the county that has 100% screening rate with more detected cancers? We should see significantly lower mortality rates or death rates from the cancer. But on this graph, this is the line for mortality. Straight across. Not a change. No change. So exactly the same number of women were dying of breast cancer in the areas that screened 100% versus 40%. Made no difference whatsoever. Again, proving the fact and the point that must be made that screening, the way we're doing it right now, is not saving lives. So here at the end of this, they say the decisions must be made based on evidence that is available, not achievable ideals. The ideal of wanting to detect more cancers, the ideas we have is that we'll save more lives, but that is an ideal. That's not a fact. That's not what the research and evidence shows. It should be based on this evidence right here that it's worthless to do a mammogram. Screening was not associated with reduced mortality from breast cancer during the follow-up years. Conclusions of that study right there. So this is the problem. See, what is taking place is this same graph right here. What is happening and why we have this faith in mammography is the fact that we see more women diagnosed, and we see so many of these women. So we still have the same number. Even if we detect it, they still die. So there's women that we're detecting breast cancer in that are still dying despite any treatments. And then there are women who are being detected, that are getting a diagnosis of cancer, breast cancer, that should never have been diagnosed because they were never going to die from the illness. They would never have an ill effect from the diagnosis. Now, that's not to say that a tumor can't be a wake-up call to cause somebody to live 20 extra years, but it may not be the cancer that causes. You can still have a reason to get healthier if a tumor has developed. But by treatment, we're not saving any lives. By doing these things, so we have this many women. So from here to here, all these women in this area here, all those thousands, hundreds of thousands of women that we're treating for cancers that would never harm them, they're right now walking around saying, hey, mammography saved my life, you gotta go get your mammogram. And that's why we have a hard time in society right now talking about the truth and breaking it down, and why we have people who adamantly oppose abolishing mammography screening like Switzerland has. A plain read article was in Washington Post in 2015, an article titled "Stop Routine Breast Cancer Screening. Science has shown they don't save lives." The American Cancer Society and the American College of Radiology opposed the United States Preventive Service Task Force when the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force says we need to do away or significantly reduce mammography screening. We, of course, have the American Cancer Society and American College of Radiology Businesses, core businesses, a lot of you think that the American Cancer Society is a nonprofit. It's a big, major business. Huge. And the money we're donating to them is not going to the right location, which is to help people, truly, truly help people. Okay? So the American College of Radiology, whose core businesses include promoting widespread screening by the ACS and those that would make money on the screening themselves, doing the screening, the American College of Radiology. So they oppose it. But here's what we have. It is now evident that not only have the benefits of mammography been overstated, but also the harms have been downplayed. So people have suppressed the harms and overstated what they thought was benefits. Okay, so let's break down some of the numbers here. They say here that mammograms will be normal for around, out of 10,000 women, ages 50 to 70, around 900, out of 10,000, 9,500 women will have normal screens. About 500 abnormal screens will be detected. 466 to 479 will have false positives. So if 10,000 women walk into their doctor's office, into the hospital to get a mammogram, so if we got that many women walking into the hospital, 10,000, get a mammogram, out of those 10,000, we're going to have 470, possibly 466 to 479, okay? Those women right there, they're going to get false positives, so they're going to have an immediate, almost heart attack. And I wonder how many, if we did a study on how many would have a heart attack or suffer a stroke from the severe stress they were under while waiting to go back to the hospital to discover that they didn't really have cancer. You guys get this? That's a harm, because they have to go back for further testing to determine that, oh wait, you didn't have cancer at all. Then it goes, 100 to 200 of these women will undergo invasive procedures. So out of these false positives, 100 to 200 women will undergo invasive procedures, losing money, being harmed, biopsies, pain, suffering, chemotherapy, other regimens. The remaining 21 to 34 abnormal screens will be true positives. So only out of this 10,000, we have 21 to 34, anyways, 34. 34, I have horrible handwriting, sorry about that. Abnormal screens will be true positive, indicating breast cancer. Some of these women will die of breast cancer in spite of the detection and quote-unquote optimal therapy. It's not optimal therapy if you didn't survive. The optimal gives survival. Some may live long enough to die of other causes despite being detected and actually having cancer. The number of extended lives attributed to mammography detection is 2 to 6. So 2 to 6 per 10,000 screening. And again, mind you, the statistics in the polls actually showed that out of 1,000 women screened, women in America, 70-some% believe that 80 would have their life saved out of 1,000. The reality is, out of 10,000, you may get 2 to 6. Here's the kicker, though. The National Cancer Institute states that out of 10,000 women going through annual, year after year mammograms, out of 10,000 annual mammograms performed, 1 per 1,000 women will actually develop cancer due to the radiation, okay? So that gives us 10 women will develop cancer because of radiation from mammography screening, and because of that cancer, now we're in the hole. So do the math on that. If we caused 10 women to develop cancer, and that's a safe number given to us by the National Cancer Institute, 10 out of 10,000 will develop cancer because of mammography radiation. We only extend the lives of 2 to 6. We're in the hole, a minimum of at least 4 women dying because of mammography. Thus, when you put those statistics together, you analyze it, you can actually see that we're doing much greater harm than good. So, tens of thousands of women nationwide each year. Over the diagnosis, we've got about 5 minutes. Man, I never get through all the information that I desire to. Mammograms is one of the subjects that we could just go through, and that's what this show is ultimately, I apologize, is going to be about. We're not going to be able to read and break down the cost of cancer, not going to be able to talk and go through and read through the article on reishi mushroom, a wilderness remedy, but the studies have shown it to boost the immune system, so we'll be talking about that in the next couple shows. They say that the thousands of women will have psychological, physical harm, financial harms from the treatment and from the screening. It says here we need to radically rethink the tenets of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We need to completely rethink Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We need to be aware of the things that are causing cancer in the first place. You know, what I'm going to do is the next show, I want to kind of lead into the next one, kind of follow up with a little bit of the information, because I know I'll have questions about this. The article I will start out with next show is I'm going to talk a little bit more about breast cancer screening. I'm going to talk specifically about how breast cancer screening was oversold by Susan G. Komen. The cancer screening, how Susan G. Komen oversold the benefits of mammography, how they skew the statistics, how they make it appear as though we were saving lives when we're not. And then we're going to go through the next show. We will be going through one of the most valuable tests a person can do to evaluate their prognosis or their risk of cancer developing into more aggressive forms, what they can do about improving not only that test, but improving their functional capacity of their body and capability of healing and beating any type of active disease. We'll go through again the research behind reishi mushroom and those things, the wilderness remedies that help our body boost the immune system against cancer and repair after it's been harmed by chemotherapy or radiation, things that could be added to the treatment. We'll go through others. Make sure that you email me, drdalebrown@gmail.com. Make sure that you like us on Facebook, The Wild Doc, and then go and just spread the word as much as you can. Subscribe on thewilddoc.com, and we'll be getting out the email with all these research articles to you. So I hope this information blesses people. Have a great day.